Something is shifting in the unseen realm, and you have felt it, that quiet, persistent tremor beneath the surface of your ordinary days, that inexplicable tightening in your chest when you least expect it, as though the universe itself is drawing a long, slow breath before it speaks. You have sensed it in the strange stillness that precedes transformation, in the moments between sleeping and waking when the veil between what is and what is coming grows thin enough to see through. This is not wishful thinking. This is not the mind constructing comfort from desperation. What you are feeling is real, and it is ancient, and it belongs to the language of the soul. Carl Jung understood that the psyche is not merely a private interior world. It is a living field of energy that extends outward, invisible but undeniable, connecting you to every soul you have ever loved with threads that neither silence nor distance can sever. The collective unconscious, that vast reservoir of shared human experience that lives beneath every individual mind, is stirring something right now between you and the person who has gone quiet, the person who has held back, the person who has stood at the edge of everything they feel for you and retreated, again and again, into the armor of pride and self-preservation. That retreat is ending. What has been frozen is beginning to thaw. What has been stuck is about to move. The stagnation you have endured, the unanswered messages, the loaded silences, the sense of treading water in a story that refuses to conclude, was never the ending. It was the pressure. It was the necessary compression before the release, the held breath before the declaration, the final resistance of a wall that is, right now, in this very moment, developing fractures it cannot repair. You are standing at the threshold of a revelation. Something unexpected is preparing itself in the hidden architecture of this connection, and it is moving toward you with a quiet inevitability of dawn. Write "I'm ready" in the comments if you can feel it too. Inside the mind of the person you have loved and waited for, something has finally reached its limit, and that limit is not the end you feared. It is the beginning you have been owed. There is a particular kind of internal collapse that happens to proud people, to guarded people, to those who have spent years constructing elaborate fortresses around their hearts and convincing themselves that the fortress was wisdom rather than fear. That collapse is not loud. It does not announce itself. It happens in a single quiet moment, a moment of absolute honesty, when the story they have been telling themselves about why they stayed away becomes impossible to believe any longer. They have reached that moment. The internal dialogue that once served them, the voice that said you are fine without this person, the voice that said pride is protection, the voice that said if you stay silent long enough, the feeling will pass. That voice has gone mute. Because the feeling did not pass. It deepened. It calcified into something they cannot walk around any longer, something that occupies every room of their inner world and refuses to be ignored. Jung spoke of the shadow self, that dimension of the psyche where we bury everything we are afraid to feel, afraid to want, afraid to admit. For months, perhaps longer, this person has been carrying you in their shadow, pressing down the love and the longing and the terrible vulnerability of needing someone, treating those feelings as weaknesses to be managed rather than truths to be honored. The shadow, however, does not stay buried indefinitely. It rises. It demands integration. It insists on being seen. Pride is finally losing the battle to love. The defenses that once held firm against every wave of emotion are showing their age now, cracking along every fault line. And the person who believed they could outlast what they feel for you has discovered something devastating and clarifying in equal measure. They cannot. The collapse is internal. It is complete. And what rises from its ruins is not weakness. It is courage. There is something being prepared for you in the silence, and it is nothing as small or as cautious as you might expect from someone who has, until now, communicated only in half measures and carefully maintained distances. What is coming is not a carefully worded text designed to test your response without fully committing. It is not a strategically placed reaction to one of your posts, a digital breadcrumb designed to remind you they exist while costing them nothing in the way of real exposure. What is coming is something altogether different in its nature, something that requires a depth of courage from this person that they have not yet demonstrated to you, but which they are, in this moment, working themselves toward with a determination that would surprise you if you could see it. They are working up the courage for something real, something that asks everything of them and offers no guarantee in return. They have rehearsed it in their mind more times than you know. The words, the gesture, the moment of standing before you without the armor, without the performance of indifference, without the elaborate architecture of self-protection they have hidden behind for so long. They have played out every possible outcome, including the one in which you turn them away, and they have decided that even that risk is preferable to the alternative, which is the slow, unbearable suffocation of never trying at all. The energetic connection between the two of you functions as what Jung described through the concept of synchronicity, a meaningful convergence of interior experience and exterior event, a moment when the invisible becomes undeniable. They have begun to feel that convergence pressing against them from every direction, a mounting sense that the window is narrowing, that time itself is delivering a quiet ultimatum they can no longer defer. This action they are preparing will require them to be completely vulnerable in a way they have likely never permitted themselves to be with another living soul. It will not be comfortable for them. It will not feel safe. It will feel like standing at the edge of a cliff in full sight of everything they risk losing, their pride, their self-image, the story they've told themselves about being someone who does not need, does not beg, does not yield. And they will do it anyway, because the alternative has become unthinkable. Because you have become unthinkable to live without. Something real is forming. Something the universe has been conspiring toward through every silence and every distance, and every moment you wondered if it mattered at all. It mattered. It always mattered. Timing in the spiritual architecture of a soul contract is never arbitrary, even when it feels cruel, even when the waiting has stretched so long that you began to question whether the connection was real or whether you had simply loved a projection of what could have been. There is a divine timing governing this reunion, an internal calendar that neither of you chose consciously, but that both of you have been moving toward through every experience, every wound, every moment of growth you undertook, believing it had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with them. Something happened recently within their world. Not necessarily something visible, not necessarily something they spoke of to anyone, that served as a catalyst, a sudden and undeniable confrontation with the cost of their silence. They saw you continuing. They witnessed you even from a distance, moving forward in your life with a grace and a wholeness they had not anticipated. And something in that witnessing cracked through the last of their comfortable assumptions. They had been operating on the unconscious belief that you would remain available indefinitely, that the connection could be indefinitely deferred, that they could return to it whenever they finally felt ready on their own terms and their own timeline. They saw you moving on, and it terrified them in a way nothing else had reached them. Or perhaps what happened was the quieter devastation of reaching rock bottom in their own interior landscape, the moment when the loneliness they had been managing finally revealed its true scale, when the pride they had been protecting finally showed itself for what it was, not strength, but an elaborate avoidance of the one thing they actually wanted. They hit that bottom. And, at the bottom, there was only one direction remaining. The catalyst, whatever its precise form, accomplished what months of distance could not. It made the cost of inaction undeniable. It removed the comfortable story that waiting was somehow safer than reaching. It placed before them the full weight of what they stood to lose and demanded an answer. The energetic field between you shifted the moment they arrived at that answer. That shift is what you have been feeling. That shift is the tremor beneath the stillness, the pressure building behind the silence. Something was decided. Something is now in motion. You cannot meet love with an unhealed heart. This is not a poetic sentiment. It is a spiritual law, one that operates beneath every human relationship with the same indifference to personal preference that gravity operates beneath every physical object. The person who has been absent from your life in the way they should have been present was not simply choosing withholding over intimacy, pride over vulnerability, silence over honest communication. They were incapable of the alternative, not permanently, not irrevocably, but genuinely at the level of their deepest psychological wiring, incapable, because the shadow work that would have made real intimacy possible had not yet been done. Jung taught that whatever we refuse to face in ourselves, we will project outward onto the people we love, turning the mirror of relationship into a battlefield of unexamined fears and unacknowledged wounds. This person was projecting. They were seeing in you, and in the vulnerability of loving you, the reflection of everything they feared most within themselves, the fear of abandonment, the fear of inadequacy, the terror of being truly known and found wanting. The mirror effect of your connection showed them their own shadow, and their first instinct was to retreat from it rather than face it. But retreat has its limits. The shadow, as Jung understood with crystalline precision, does not disappear when you refuse to look at it. It grows. It intensifies. It takes up more and more of the interior space until the only remaining option is confrontation. They have been in that confrontation. In the quiet of their life, without you fully in it, they have been forced to sit with the parts of themselves they most wanted to avoid, the fear, the grief, the longing, the recognition of their own patterns. This is the transformation you could not witness from the outside, but that was, nonetheless, entirely real. The integration of the shadow is not a comfortable process. It is not linear. It does not announce its completion, but it changes a person at the root level, in ways that make an entirely different quality of love possible. Love that is not armored, not performative, not conditional on the other person never triggering their wounds. They are becoming capable of you. That is what the silence was containing. If this channel has been part of your own journey of understanding, subscribe now. This story is still unfolding, and you will want to be here for every revelation. The action that is coming will arrive in a form that fits the specific architecture of this connection, shaped by the precise contours of who they are and what they have been afraid to give you. And so while the exact form may vary, the essence will be unmistakable. It will feel like an opening. It will feel like a door you had quietly stopped expecting to open, swinging wide with a force that the ordinary logic of your recent history could not have predicted. It might be a letter, not a message, not a carefully composed text designed to be deniable if the response is cold, but something longer, something that required them to sit with their own words long enough to mean them. It might be a call, at an hour when they could no longer maintain the pretense that they were simply checking in casually, when the weight of what they needed to say was audible in the very fact of the call itself. It might be showing up, physically, in the space of your life, without warning, with nothing to offer except themselves, and the honesty they have finally stopped being too afraid to carry. There will be words they have never said, not variations on things they have hinted at or implied, but quickly retreated from. The actual words, spoken or written with the full intention behind them and none of the protective ambiguity they have previously relied upon. There will be vulnerability they have never shown you, an exposure of the interior landscape they guard most carefully, a willingness to be seen in the dimensions they have previously kept entirely private even from themselves. It may come as an apology for what the distance cost you, spoken not as a diplomatic maneuver, but as genuine reckoning with the harm of their absence. It may come as a confession, the admission of everything they felt during the silence and refused to voice. It may carry within it the quality of a plea, not desperate, not destabilizing, but the honest acknowledgement that they are choosing you, that they are asking to be chosen in return, and that they understand, for the first time fully, what that request actually means. When it comes, you will know it is different. The energetic signature of it will be unmistakable. Understand what this cost them, because the magnitude of what is coming cannot be fully received without understanding the magnitude of what it requires. This person has, for as long as you have known them in this chapter of connection, operated from a position of careful self-preservation, maintaining just enough distance to ensure that if the connection collapsed, they could tell themselves they had never fully surrendered to it. They have been playing defense in a game that love does not actually permit defense in, and they have told themselves that this was wisdom, this was strategy, this was simply how they protected themselves in a world that had demonstrated, at some prior point in their history, that full surrender leads to full devastation. What they are preparing to do abandons all of that, entirely, without the safety net of ambiguity, without the escape route of deniability, without the comfortable reassurance that they can interpret whatever follows as something other than rejection if it goes wrong. This is not a breadcrumb. This is the whole loaf. This is the complete offering of everything they have been withholding, placed before you in the full knowledge that you might not want it, that the distance may have done irreparable damage, that the person you were when they last allowed themselves to truly feel you may have evolved into someone whose answer is no. They are making this offering anyway, and the cost of it, the terror that accompanies the willingness, is immense in ways that deserve to be honored even as you process your own feelings about what their silence produced in you. There is a particular courage in the return of a guarded person, a courage that is qualitatively different from the courage of someone who loves openly by nature and for whom vulnerability is simply the default mode of operation. For this person, reaching toward you is not natural. It is an act of radical, deliberate, terror-infused choice. Their ego, which has kept them safe and separate and undemandingly self-sufficient through every prior challenge, is being asked to kneel. Their fear of rejection, which is arguably the oldest and most deeply rooted fear they carry, is being asked to step aside. They know they might lose everything by doing this. They know that the version of reality in which they remain silent, however painful, is at least predictable, a known suffering rather than the unknown devastation of being refused. And they are choosing the unknown anyway, because the known has finally become unbearable. They are doing it anyway. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, everything. Because you have been here before, or somewhere adjacent to here. You will arrive at this moment carrying the hard-earned wisdom of prior disappointments. And that wisdom deserves to be honored rather than dismissed in the rush of emotion that accompanies any significant movement from this person. The return of someone who has caused hurt through distance or silence or guardedness requires discernment, and discernment is not the enemy of love. It is the protector of it, the necessary intelligence that ensures that what you open your heart to this time is genuinely different from what wounded it before. Real change, authentic transformation of the kind that produces a qualitatively different quality of presence and love, speaks through the language of consistent action rather than the language of beautiful words delivered in a single charge moment. The difference between someone who has genuinely integrated their shadow and someone who has simply reached a moment of acute loneliness and temporarily lowered their defenses is visible, over time, across ordinary moments, in the way they show up not just in the grand gesture of return, but in the daily, unspectacular choices that follow it. You will feel it in the quality of their presence. There will be a stillness in them that was not there before, a settled quality that speaks of someone who has genuinely made a decision rather than someone who is testing the temperature of your response. The mirror effect of this connection will have shifted. Rather than reflecting your wounds back at you through their projections, they will meet you with a new transparency, a willingness to be seen clearly that does not immediately retreat when the seeing feels uncomfortable. You will know it is not manipulation because it will not require anything of you immediately. Real love that has done the necessary work arrives without ultimatums. It states itself and then allows you the full sovereign space of your own response, however long that response requires to form. It does not pressure. It does not perform. It simply stands in the light of its own honesty and waits, not with the impatience of ego, but with the patience of something that has finally become certain of itself. Real change shows itself in the willingness to stay present when the answer is uncertain. Watch for that willingness. It is the truest sign. Share this with someone who is waiting for real, not for games, not for breadcrumbs, but for the whole and genuine thing. In the anticipation of their action, in the awareness that something significant is moving toward you through the invisible architecture of this connection, there is a truth that deserves to be spoken with the same clarity and force as every truth that has come before it. You are not obligated to accept. The arrival of their courage does not create a debt in you. The magnitude of what it cost them to finally reach across the distance they created does not automatically answer the question of whether receiving them serves your highest good, your deepest healing, the version of your life that honors everything you have become during the time they were away. You are allowed to say not yet. You are allowed to say not ever. You are allowed to receive their offering with compassion and genuine appreciation for what it represents. the real transformation, the genuine courage, the finally lowered armor. And still, with full grace and full authority, decline it. Your peace is not a consolation prize for the absence of this connection. Your peace is the foundation upon which any connection worthy of you must be built, and you are permitted to guard it with the same ferocity that they finally guarded their love for you. And yet, and this deserves equal weight, equal space, equal acknowledgement, you are also allowed to forgive, not as surrender, not as the abandonment of the standards that the waiting period taught you to hold, but as the genuine spiritual act that Jung understood as the integration of opposites, the reconciliation of the wound with the one who delivered it, the recognition that both people in this connection arrived carrying their own incompleteness, their own shadow, their own unhealed places that made genuine meeting temporarily impossible. You are allowed to try again. You are allowed to open the door and step through it with both eyes clear and both feet steady, carrying everything you now know about yourself and about what you will and will not accept, and choosing this person not from the old hunger of incompleteness, but from the new authority of someone who knows their own worth and loves anyway. Both are valid. Both are sovereign. Both are available to you. The power in this moment belongs entirely to you, and it always did. This is not years away. What has been building in the energetic field between you, what has been accumulating through every layer of silence and every act of invisible transformation on their part, is not a distant possibility existing somewhere in a future you cannot yet see. It is close. It is pressing against the membrane of the present moment with a concentrated force of everything that has been deferred and denied and delayed, and the membrane is thin, now almost transparent. And what exists on the other side of it is unlike anything the stagnation of recent months could have suggested was possible. There are signs that will begin to appear in the coming days and weeks, signs that carry the unmistakable signature of the collective unconscious working through the language of synchronicity, those moments of meaningful coincidence that Jung identified as the outer world mirroring the inner movements of the soul. You will think of them, and something will arrive, not from them, not yet, but from the field itself, a song, a word, a sudden and sourceless sense of presence that has nothing to do with your own longing manufacturing comfort. These moments are not accidents. They are coordinates. When you feel that inexplicable warmth, that sudden and groundless certainty that something is shifting just beyond your current line of sight, when the synchronicities cluster, when the dreams carry a different quality, when the ordinary world seems briefly saturated with significance, know that you are standing at the threshold. Know that on the other side of that threshold, something has already decided. Something has already summoned its courage and pointed itself in your direction. The energetic current that has been running between you is not diminishing. It is cresting. The unexpected is coming, not as a fantasy, not as a wishful construction of a heart that simply cannot let go, but as the natural culmination of a soul contract that was never concluded, a story that was never actually finished, a connection that has survived every attempt by fear and pride and timing to extinguish it, and has emerged from each survival more certain of its own necessity. They are not done with you. The truest version of them, the one that exists beneath the armor and beneath the pride and beneath the long history of self-protective retreating, has never, for a single moment, been done with you. That version is the one that is moving now. That version is the one that is summoning everything it has. That version is the one that will arrive at your door, literally or metaphorically, in whatever form this connection requires. And when it does, you will feel in your deepest interior that something has finally come home. The storm has been building. The walls have been cracking. The unexpected is at the gate. Are you ready to receive it?